Hello, my friends. Deb Kalidas here, and welcome to the Just Get to Work podcast. If you've joined me before, thank you so much for returning. And if this is your first time, welcome. Just Get to Work is, well, just that, the hustle, the bustle. How do we get together every day with the same energy and motivation to do what needs to get done so that we can just get to work? So please join me as we head into today's message. The rise of the answer engine. Can we keep tabs on everything? Every time I seem to, turn on the news or listen into something, it's about, what AI is doing this and AI doing that and this politician and this leader and this company and what's going on. But hey, I want to keep it simple. I want to know if people are going to call me, email me, show up at my business when I need to make the impact. So we're going to talk about two things today so that everyone can understand the starting point. We're going to be talking about large language models like LLM, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Meta AI, oh my gosh, on, and others that actually, quote unquote, think in the simplest way possible. And then we're going to go on to why these systems summarize information instead of ranking websites the way Google traditionally has. Ranking is no more. Remember that. That's a pet peeve of mine when people say you can rank on AI. Because understanding all of this changes everything about websites, branding, trust, marketing, and your visibility online. Where are your customers going to validate who you are, learn about what you sell or the services you provide? So let's start simple. What is an LLM as a large language model? It's not a search engine. Now, we use it for many similar things. If I want to know what movie is playing or what to make for dinner or, find that, home healthcare provider for a family member, I'm going to go there and search. But, it's not going to appear like what we've traditionally been used to. And this is something that people not only need to understand of, oh, yeah, no, Deb, I know it's different, but it doesn't think like Google. It doesn't crawl the web in real time and say, hey, here are the top 10, links for, where you can buy flowers for Mother's Day. Instead, that large language model is more like an incredibly advanced prediction engine for language. We talk and say things like, Jack and Jill went up a hill. If you're not first, you're last. Got to go Ricky Bobby there. There are patterns of language that we have. And so at its core, it has been trained on massive amount of texts, books, websites, forums, documentation, articles, transcripts, public conversations, and structured data. Structured? Well, that's your website especially, or information that has been laid out in kind of an outline form. And through that training, it learns patterns. And sometimes, those patterns are bad information, and that's what we call hallucinations, when it's completely wrong. But these are not facts in the way humans memorize facts. These are patterns, relationships between words and ideas, concepts, so that when you ask a large language model a question, it's not searching the way that you imagine things. It's predicting the most probable and useful response based on everything that it has learned. When you are asking about a subject matter, maybe you're a college student and you're doing some research on psychology and child development, it is digging through all of the information that's already been published about that and predicting the most probable and useful response based upon what you have asked. So it has to do not only with the information at hand, but how you've asked the question. That's why these systems feel conversational. And that's what I say, feel. At the end of the day, it's just ones and zeros behind it, very complex ones and zeros, but please don't form a relationship in any way. I insist, and this is a sidebar, don't use please and thank yous. This isn't a real person. This is a bot and a computer that you're telling what to do. You wouldn't say please and thank you to your Microsoft Teams, goodness gracious, that's failed 3 times, or your Google Drive that you can't find the file that you just created. Same thing here. So they are not retrieving a ranked list. They are generating a synthesized response. This distinction is critical, that it's not a list, this is a response. Because the simple analogy I use here with my clients is, think about when you walked into the library, right? And you had a librarian. That's what Google is. It's your librarian. You would ask a question, the librarian would point you towards shelves of books or maybe the recent copy of Ranger Rick. Remember that one? And you might find the answer over there. You might. You as the individual had to be responsible for that next research and synthesis. That was SEO, search engine optimization. ranking higher on the shelf. But large language models, they behave more like a research assistant. You might ask, all right, what is the best software that's out there for managing my wedding? What should I know about strawberries in Pennsylvania? Or where are, the best tools to see what my kitchen renovation is going to cost? The AI says, here's the answer I assembled from what appears to be the most trusted and relevant information. Trust? Well, you have the amount of times it is out there, repeated, quoted, reviews, everything that comes together. And this changes the entire game because now the AI is deciding what sources matter, what companies appear credible, which brands are repeatedly referenced, which websites are structured clearly, which organizations are understood contextually. Do you see how that goes on and on and on? And then it summarizes. So while right now I'm pretty dazzled by, ChatGPT and Google as it's got its AI and Claude and everything, but it's still only giving you this compared to what's out there. How do we make sure the responsibility is on us to keep going and making sure that we always look beyond? So why do LLMs summarize instead of rank? Traditional search engines, they were built around scarcity, right? There were too many websites. Google's job was to organize them. Simple as that. Ranking became the model. Who deserves spot number one? Who paid for spot number one? Who deserves spot number two? That's why SEO became obsessed with a whole series of different things that you could plug in for the chance to be at the top of the ranking. Backlinks, keywords, metadata, domain authority, technical optimization, click-through rates. But large language models solve a different problem. They solve cognitive overload. We're exhausted. We don't want to go through 12 tabs and 13 pages and 80 bazillion websites to try to find that answer. Think about especially when you're looking for something as massive as, medical information, legal information. When you're trying to organize major things in your life or find really important answers quickly. You don't want to go through, comparatively 5 blog posts, scroll through ads, and then decode contradictory information. Users increasingly want, just explain it to me. We all have the attention span of a goldfish. So AI summarizes, we get really excited, and it compresses the internet into an answer. And from a user experience perspective, this is crazy powerful, but it also creates massive disruption. Now the AI becomes the gatekeeper of the attention, not the rankings, not the summaries. Think about that. What are you seeing and what aren't you seeing? As 60+% of the US population are now using LLMs frequently for all the AI search, you've got to think, well, what are businesses now missing? Well, you're missing the opportunity to be in front of your best potential customers or your current customers. Because most businesses still think visibility means, am I ranking on Google? How am I looking on my Google Analytics? Are my customers still coming in the door and calling and emailing? But the real question is, am I included in an AI-generated understanding of who I am and what I provide? And that's completely different. Because large language models don't merely look for optimized pages. They're looking for clarity, consistency, authority, context, and trust signals. They want structured information and relationships between those entities of what's going on. This is why some companies with mediocre search engine optimization are showing up prominently in AI responses, and why some companies with strong SEO are disappearing. The two may or may not be a causation or correlation depending upon how you have it set up online. Because the AI is not simply rewarding traffic tactics. It's exciting when, on Google, you see that your business is all of a sudden ranking first. Maybe you did an awesome promotion, you plopped in some new AdWords, and even, got to make sure that you were mentioned in some other websites. Well, but AI is not simply rewarding the traffic tactics of before, it's rewarding understanding. If your website is confusing, if it's like a Craigslist ad, if it has too much messaging or it's fragmented, or if your expertise is hidden, if you simply don't have your directories done correctly, your company can be lacking contextual clarity, and AI struggles to summarize you confidently. And when AI lacks confidence, that's when you disappear. Confidence is such a human word, right? When we feel confident, we feel good about ourselves. We know what we're doing. We know what's going to come next. And that's what LLMs are building. They're building confidence. Here's a simplified way to think about it. If an LLM is constantly asking, do I understand what this company actually is? So LLMs are actually seeking to build confidence. Confidence, it's not like human confidence where you're like, I feel good about myself. They build it in a different way. Here's a simplified way to think about it. An LLM is constantly asking, do I understand what this company actually is? Not. Did they use the keyword 47 times? The model is looking for reinforcement across the web, not how many times you've mentioned that you happen to, sell remote controls or, are excited to be a purple pen. It is looking for, does the website say the same thing LinkedIn says? Do industry publications mention them? Do podcasts reinforce expertise? Are they referenced consistently? It's this content structure of an ecosystem of how questions are answered directly online. And that is what is compiled and gets the LLMs excited as they recognize what's out there. This is all incredibly important because humans actually behave similarly to the way the LLM is collecting information. When I started Focus Point Communications 9 years ago, I was coming out of a corporate opportunity. My husband was busy with our other businesses. Our kids were really young. I'm like, all right, how am I going to launch a marketing communication with a structured website build business when nobody knows that I even have this? I've been in corporate. No one's paying attention to what Deb's doing on her own. I actually decided, I looked at 3 months and I said, I'm going to go to every single networking event I possibly can in 3 months. I think I was averaging, anywhere from 19 to like 32 every month. It was exhausting, but it was also beautiful. I kept meeting people and I kept seeing, okay, well, where are the trusted individuals? Who keeps coming in and saying, oh, wait, Deb, I've seen you here before. Let's talk. You began to pick up on who were the trusted businesses and individuals, and then who was just flitting in and out and not really investing their time in others and a message that was easy to, comprehend. Have you ever been in networking and they say, do your 30-minute pitch, and then someone takes like 4.5 minutes? You're just like, please, someone interrupt. Please, someone interrupt. That's what we need. We need the information so that it is repeatable, that it comes out in trustworthiness. And if someone introduces themselves 5 different ways in 5 different places, trust drops. But if everyone describes that person consistently, that they're an expert, that they're known for something, that they're a leader, confidence rises. So LLMs are working similarly. They're synthesizing those repeated signals. How can you get repeated signals within your website and your digital presence? I am constantly being asked from my clients, potential clients, speaking engagements, questions online. Does my website still matter? I mean, my Google Analytics are down. I'm not getting as many clicks. Where do I need to place my dollars? Whew. Websites still matter more than ever. And, some people hear this and think, well, no, websites are dead. It's all in the LLMs. Well, absolutely not, because where do you think they're going to get the information? Of course they're searching things. So what I argue is that you need to invest not only in the website as for how your customers and potential customers are looking at it, not all, because Google's not going anywhere at this moment, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with AI. Their SEO rankings are still very prominent. What are you going to do, though, has your website as a source document? It needs to be the clearest explanation of who you are, what you do, who you serve, and why you matter. And then on top of that, what expertise do you own? Please go to my YouTube right now. Please smash that like button. Make sure that you're a subscriber and take a look, because at this point of recording, I think I might have 9.5 subscribers. And I know 2 of them are my own children. So I would love for you to go in, because this is my project, right? Patrick David talks about how, when he first started, that first year, he got up to 60 followers for his podcast. Well, now he's got like 1 million different followers out there. You have to start somewhere. I've been anchored on AI in my followers. I've been anchored in person. And now guess what? This is why I'm doing the Just Get to Work podcast, because it's about the hustle of trying things differently to make sure that you own the expertise that you're preaching and that you're selling. The AI needs material to understand you. And that's what I'm doing in my creation. Where do you need to create your material? Maybe it's somewhere totally different in your industry and where your audience is paying attention. But if your website is vague and marketing fluff, the AI has nothing meaningful to work with. But if your website clearly explains your industry, process, expertise, authority, use cases, geography, especially if you're serving just a certain area, and then terminology. I'm always going through that stuff with you all here. The AI then can summarize you more accurately, and this is the future of discoverability. And I would argue it's not even the future. It's now. It's happening. If you've gotten to know me in any kind of prior podcast or connect with me on LinkedIn or see my business, I want to step back because while all of this technology gets me really excited and I nerd out, it's all about the authentic side of being a human and the relationships. So when we look and reflect, why are people responding so strongly to AI summaries? I said to my husband, I said, you know what? If I had unlimited time and budget, I'd go and look and get my PhD write this on now. Because humans naturally seek simplification. We can only handle so much at a time. I always, when I can think of those teachers and professors that tried to put everything into the exam all at once. How do you become an expert if you have to understand everything at once? It's biting it into smaller pieces. So we want trusted guidance. We want someone to reduce complexity. This is why I exist in what I do. Teachers, doctors, pastors, coaches, advisors, they're all there. The value often isn't raw information. It's that interpretation and the feeling that you get. If you feel that you're being taken care of, oh my gosh, you go back again. And while that is the feeling that we're getting by using these LLMs, they're becoming interpretation engines because, well, if you haven't noticed, if you keep using the same platform like ChatGPT, it starts to learn your personality. If you mention your child's name once, it's going to mention it up again. If you happen to be doing a search that it's your 25th wedding anniversary and you're looking for a gift, not that I did that, it's going to bring that up again. Well, all of a sudden it's, oh, well, this is what you did before. And so within these interpretation engines, this means that businesses need to become easier to interpret. Large, long, lofty salesmanship online, it's not making it happen. It has to be more human and more structured and more trustworthy. And so the AI era may be to reward authenticity and the authentic communication. And this is what gets me excited. As I would spend hours and thousands of dollars in the past years making sure that people get to our farm to pick the best strawberries and to have fun in the corn maze and to have a hayride, what I was only able to do was to talk about the product and within the keywords. Now I can communicate about the experience. And that's something the old SEO era really never did. Here's the risk, and this is what you need to be aware of for yourself, teach your children, your spouse, family members, but also as a business owner. The danger here is that the summarization concentrates power. Who's going to be summarized most? Hey, if we, the good guys, are out there working hard to get our business and our purpose and what we need to do, that is an intense opportunity. But if the AI system summarizes the internet for billions of people, then inclusion matters enormously. So if your business is misunderstood or invisible, that has consequences. And that is why companies should not ignore this shift. I am encountering, especially larger organizations, they don't know what to do first. Because guess what? Now you have to not only have your marketing and communications team with your website team and your PR team, but now you need to bring in your sales team. What are they hearing from people? And it's not that organizations aren't doing this within their ecosystem, but now you need an infrastructure to all of a sudden be more communicative to each other to get that information digitally out there. So you're moving from search engine optimization to a visibility optimization of what is happening. And that is only going to be discovered by working with your team internally. And that's what we do at Focus Point. I come in as the guide and the opportunity to lead those awesome rock stars you already have to where they need to get to. Or we come in and we can be that team to lead AI discoverability, entity authority, contextual trust. These are big words. Contextual trust. We never depended upon that on Google. Call it what you want, but the behavior of the internet has changed. So what should companies actually do? Here's a couple of things. First, clarify your message. So often I'll get into a room, we'll have that initial statement of work for discovery, and you're like, what's the keys to the kingdom, Dev? What are those things that we're going to do that immediately is going to send us to the top? And I'm like, you guys can't put a sentence together. You need a hero statement. You need something that if someone lands on your homepage for 5 seconds, they instantly know what you do, who you help, and why you matter. And then from there, we begin asking real questions together. because FAQs matter again. Structured explanations matter. Educational content matters. And then third, you got to be consistent. If you have Bob off in sales that is then, publishing things on LinkedIn that don't match the language that you have in your last news and blog post that then doesn't correlate with what you have on your homepage, that is going to be a problem. Get press releases out there. Get podcast appearances. Be in directories and articles and conference bios, because you need to build a machine confidence that then the human confidence quickly becomes behind. So outside your own website, this is where I want you to think about. Where do you need to be mentioned, interviewed, cited, not just in isolated pages? Because you need to stop writing only for the algorithms. You need to write for understanding. And that's the real shift here. So final thoughts, we are still very early in this transition. If you watch my last podcast, it shows, hey, we're in the first early curve of user interface and what's going on. But this is, one of the largest shifts in digital communication since the birth of social media and even smartphones. And hey, I've been from the landline to the payphone to the actual car phone to the flip phone to the Nokia snake phone to then finally, BlackBerry. I had that iPhone. So I've been through them all. And we're going to be going through continued change here as well as we see, what LLMs make it in the long term and what are absorbed by others. But for 20 years, businesses optimized to be found have been in a certain way. Now you need to be optimized to be understood. This is a profound difference. And the winners in the next era, they won't necessarily be the loudest. They're going to be the clearest and the most understandable. It's easiest to summarize, confidently when you are out there in different ways and making sure that you're consistent in all that you do. So here's my prediction and what we all need to work on together. And please reach out to me. Let's have a great conversation and let Focus Point Communications help you. But because the future of visibility, it's not going to be who ranked first. It's going to be who does the AI understand best. What are we going to talk about? So just get to work, jot down some ideas, make sure you meet with your team or meet with me. And let's talk about how this AI revolution can be an opportunity for positive reinforcement of authentic relationships and how we can help each other. Have a blessed day.